This year I finally got to go to NAB again for the first time in a number of years. I think the last time was 2019. Felt really good to get back, to see what products are new, and to connect with old friends and meet some new friends as well. Let me just kind of run through some of the highlights from my perspective, mostly sound-related things, but a few lighting things as well. Number one, I went to the DEITY microphones booth on Sunday, and they had two new products that were kind of interesting. First of all is the SF-1. It's a directional shark fin style antenna. This is technically called a log periodic dipole array antenna. It's directional, so this is different from the bow tie antennas, which are roughly omnidirectional. The shark fins are definitely directional, so it can increase your range potentially. And it covers the 470 megahertz to 1 gigahertz range. It can be used with the DEITY Theo system, but it can also be used with other wireless microphone systems if you've got an RF distribution system and that wireless system has SMA connectors for the receiver. So that's pretty cool. Looking forward to trying that out. Second thing is their DIFB. This is an IFB, and IFB stands for interruptible foldback, as I understand it, but what they're used for on film sets typically is for sending audio from the mixer over to a director, a script supervisor, a producer, someone on the crew, and or anyone that needs sound from the mixer on set. Or you can also send a hop to the camera from the mixer, so it can be used in those circumstances as well. It's compatible, of course, with the Theos system, and we got a chance to test it. So I went from the DEITY booth basically to the opposite side of the hall, and we had no problems whatsoever. So it's looking promising. Again, looking forward to trying that out some as well. Next, I went over to the Sound Devices booth and got a little look at the A20 Handheld. This microphone is a microphone that was actually used by Kendrick Lamar at the halftime show at the last Super Bowl. It is a pretty cool design. They put a lot of thought into it. So this is part of their wireless system. So just like and this is the wireless system that I typically use actually, is the Sound Devices. I have the A20 receivers. I have A10 transmitters, the A20 mini transmitter. This is in addition to that handheld microphone. It does have the ability to use different capsules from other companies. They have their own capsule, of course, but you can use Sennheiser and Shure capsules as well. And really interesting antenna design. It's pretty hard in some ways to make a handheld microphone because sometimes the hand can prevent the signal from making its way out. In any case, really interesting design and looks cool. First time I got a chance to put my hands on the CL16, which is a control surface, mixing control surface for the 8 series recorders. And also got to look at, there's a third-party one, a new one from Icon as well, which looked pretty nice. And I think the highlight for me as well at the Sound Devices booth, talking to Paul Isaacs, he said, "Curtis, what would you do if there was going to be another generation of the Mix Pre?" So I was able to give some feedback there, which I was excited about. I then headed over to the Sennheiser booth. They have a new microphone, the MKH 8018. This is a pretty interesting microphone as well. They're not the first ones to make something like this. Sanken has something like this, I believe. But it is a shotgun microphone that can be switched into different modes. There's a mid-side stereo mode, a wide stereo mode, XY mode, and a narrow XY mode. So 3 different stereo modes. And you might be thinking, Curtis, why are you talking about a stereo shotgun? Does that even make sense? What's cool about it to me is that you can just use it as a traditional directional shotgun microphone. You go to mid-side mode and just use the feed from the mid microphone. Then it's just like a regular shotgun microphone. But you can also record stereo if you want to. So it looks really interesting. Again, part of their MKH series. So it's using the RF bias technology that Sennheiser is so good at and has in all of their 8000 series microphones as well. So that's pretty cool. Gear is one reason to go to NAB, but another is that you run into people who you may or may not know. You make new friends. In our case here, I ran into this guy. This is Tom Buck. If you haven't heard of his YouTube channel, he is a fantastic instructor when it comes to audio and cameras and kind of all sorts of things related to video. He was formerly a high school teacher, and he had a very interesting microphone setup. It's Tom.
Hi, yes. So I just want to share in here, I do have my SM7B with all of my stuff to set up, ready to go. Actually, I have too much wireless stuff. But let me show you what I'm most excited about right now to start using. This is brand new. So I have this. And now when I want to introduce someone,
Hello.
I think it needs to be more like
Hi.
hand, yeah. So
Does this have a name yet?
oh,
Product?
oh shoot.
It's
This
the
needs a
NAB.
name.
It's the
TBD.
NAB Tiny Mic? Or
This, I mean, I've always just called it the tiny mic, but now it's like the get to the point mic.
And then here's my friend Matt. You can see here he likes tacos, but he likes crab legs even more, so we ended up eating dinner at this place, and we had a good time. Then on Monday, I met up with my friend Michael Wynn. He is a production sound mixer based in Atlanta, works on TV and film. And if you want to learn some great stuff from that perspective, he knows a lot of stuff. He's got a YouTube channel here. His last name is spelled W-Y-N-N-E. We had breakfast and then we headed over to the Zaxcom booth as our first stop. And at Zaxcom, they were introducing a brand new IFB system called their VRX-1. So it's actually not a system, I guess it's a receiver. So this is whoever is going to be wearing the headphones, director, script supervisor, whoever you're sending sound to would have this on their belt. And this one's a little bit unique from the standpoint that it's a VHF system instead of a UHF system. So it's operating in a different spectrum, different part of the spectrum. And the advantage of that is that then on set, you don't have it competing. You don't have your wireless feeds that you're sending to all these different crew members to competing with your wireless microphones and everything else that's operating on set wirelessly. So that's the good thing. But the kind of the question that came to my mind is VHF systems usually don't sound that great. And in fact, that's what my Comtechs are, and they don't sound amazing. They get the job done and people can hear generally what's going on, but they're not known for amazing audio quality. So I was curious to try this out. Glenn Sanders let us put it on and take it across the hall. So we walked from the Zaxcom booth all the way to the other end of the hall, and we didn't experience any dropouts, which is great. They were transmitting from a dipole antenna, probably up at about 8 feet above the booth in the hall there. And we were able to get, even when I walked around the corner of a block wall, we didn't drop out, which was nice. But what's exceptional about this one to me is that as a VHF system, it sounded surprisingly good. Was it perfect? No. But it was really, really good for a VHF system, so that was pretty cool. While I was at the booth there, we ran into Doc Justice, who has a company called Halter Technical, and they just introduced a brand new tiny, tiny, tiny in-ear monitor that you can't even the little cable that comes up over your ear, you can barely see it, and it's called the Pico. P-E-E-K-O, I guess is a play on Pico as in the size in the metric system. But in any case, I'm looking forward to trying that at some point in the future. It's really, really nice to have something that's really unobtrusive, especially when you're on camera and you need the ability to hear. Now, we headed over to the Reading Audio booth, and there are several companies. Reading Audio represents several audio companies here in the United States, and most of those other companies are European-based. That included Audio Root, Ambient, Radius, and some other companies as well. Viviana Straps, another one that I got to meet with. But the highlight there for me was the Radius windshields. Now, if you don't know the history here, many of you have heard of Rycote. Rycote is probably one of the most popular companies for making windshields, and they were a UK-based company, eventually sold to a parent company, or I don't know if it's a holding company. It's the same company now that owns Audix, who makes microphones here in the United States. They own Rycote, and they own several other, they own Manfrotto, and several other names that you may have heard over the years. But there have been some kind of funny things going there. I don't know what it is, but in any case, the guy Simon, who originally started Rycote, has now started a new company called Radius Windshields. And I got a chance to look at the Mini Alto windshields with their rad shock mounts. And these designs look really nice. And what's nice about them, all of my windshields are Rycote windshields. I love them, but the one thing that I don't always love about them is that it takes a while to get the windshield on and off. And the Mini Alto windshields are the fastest that I've seen to get on and off so far. Now, the Cyclone's pretty good, but the Cyclone is really made for like really pretty intense wind. It's not made for the lightest breezes. That's where I'd prefer to use my Nano Shield instead, but the Mini Alto kind of fit in that same category, but you can get them on and off so much quicker, which is really cool. Now, Zoom in the past has had their own booth, Zoom as in like the Zoom F-Series recorders, have had their own booth, but this year they didn't have their own booth. Instead, they teamed up with B&H, and so there was Samuel from Zoom at this tiny little table in the B&H booth, but I got a chance to talk with him, which was fun to catch up. And I got to take a look for the first time at the Zoom H5 Studio. Now, what's interesting about this is, I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the handheld form factor recorders. Like they're not something I use a lot. And I think a big part of that is that the quality has just never been that great. The preamps have always been a little on the noisy side, and the inbuilt microphones were okay, but not amazing. And handling noise was always a problem, and very few of them had shock-mounted microphones. In any case, the H5 Studio looks like a new step forward on that front. They're using much larger microphones, which they're supposed to sound better. They're supposed to capture more of the spectrum of audio. But the most important thing is that they're now using the F-Series, the Zoom F-Series preamplifiers in the H5 Studio. So that'll be really interesting. So I'm looking forward to getting my hands on one of those and taking a listen and a look. Next, we went to the Saramonic booth. Last week, we talked about the Saramonic K9 wireless microphone system. I've already talked about that. I'm in the process of working on a review of that. We'll be back with more info on that. But they also had, and one of the things I said in my video last week was one of the advantages that the DEITY system had over the Saramonic wireless microphone system was that DEITY already had an ecosystem of timecode generators, a slate, so on and so forth, and that Saramonic didn't have that. But when I showed up at the booth, I realized they had just announced their new timecode generator they're calling TC Neo. And it is very much like it's many other timecode generators that you see today, the Tentacle Sync, then the DEITY TC1. Saramonic now has their own version, so excited to try that out. And just like with this DEITY system, it's integrated into their app, so you can re-jam everything wirelessly from your app, which is nice. So less fussing around when it comes to post-lunch and having to re-jam the timecode generators just to be sure, because things have been powered down. So that was looking pretty promising there. And then finally, I went over to the Allen and Heath booth, and for the first time got a chance to look at the CQ mixers. They're not new. They've been out for a few years now, but I've never had a chance to actually work with them and actually see them in person, get my hands on them, see what it looks like. And the reason I'm interested in these is I think they're a really nice, small form factor mixer with lots of inputs and automatic microphone mixing. So they have some features that a lot of other, like these podcast mixers, the dedicated podcast mixers. The only one that I've seen that has auto mix on it is the Mackie DLZ, and the auto mix is okay, not great on that. The Sound Devices Mix Pre has a really good auto mix plugin that you can buy and add to your Mix Pre, but there's nothing that's like a regular or more traditional mixing board type of thing that I know of that has automatic mic mixers, or at least there are others out there. I haven't used them, but this is one option there, and so I was excited to take a look at those and get my hands on them. In any case, I hope that was helpful for you at some level. Those are kind of the highlights from my visit to NAB this year. We will have reviews on some of these things that we're able to get our hands on. Some of them we may not be able to, but looking forward to trying those out. Get out there and make some great sound, and we will talk to you again next week.